Alright, this video is perhaps the most boring ones of these scalloping videos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scallop an entire fret here. And as I do that, I'm going to give you different tips on how to get it right. And so you might want to watch this video while you play guitar, practice, for instance, because it's going to take a while. But it's a good idea to have seen the process in action and actually know how long does it take. Just having a feel of the process instead of just knowing the things about the process. So I'm going to scallop this fret. I'm just going to begin, and I can talk while I do it. I start by going from fret to fret just to give me a good start. The wood is kind of smooth and a bit slippery in the beginning, so I'm not applying too much force because that will make me go over the fret if I press down on it right away. So I try to just roughen it up first before I apply too much force. I'm not touching any of the frets here. I can also have a position like this where I place my finger right there so I don't helps me not touch that fret too much. But I prefer this one. I go back and forth, like we talked about, up and down, then I change directions now. And again, the less force you apply to a certain degree, the more control you have. You often start making mistakes when you become impatient and you start applying more force, and then suddenly the file slips over the fret, which is not a catastrophe, but you want to avoid that. Any eventual, if you make a little scratch in the fret, they will be gone when you start sanding the wood here, because the finer sandpaper I'm going to use will actually polish the frets and give them a really, if they're old or have dirt on them, or it will remove the dirt or the wear or whatever. So I'm starting to go from the edge and then to the middle now. Back and forth. And remember, when you go back and forth like this, you spend more time on the edges because that's when you turn around. So you want to compensate for that by using a little more time in the middle. And then from the other side. And into the middle. So this movement is what creates the pit. And then when I go all the way over, I even out, or I make the pit more smooth in its shape. And it can be actually a big advantage to have a mirror right here, so you can see the shape that is opposite to where you're sitting. See the shapes there? Or you might have a webcam positioned there. If you have a laptop with a webcam, you can just place it on your table so you can see the other side of the fretboard and how the shape looks. It will be mirrored, so left will be right and right will be left. But you can compensate for that and say, okay, where is where I need to put some extra focus? It's here. Okay, and then you put then you know it, because it's the opposite of what you see. And to get as close to the frets as possible, I'm using this end of the file because it's thinner than the middle part. So I just use that to get all the way in there and just get some of the wood off, just beside the frets there. The dot in the middle here tends to be a lot harder than the wood itself. and that sometimes creates a little bump when you take the wood off. It creates a little bump in the middle because each time you hit that dot there, the file goes up a bit. So, and sometimes you want to compensate for that, but just sticking it right there and then just working the dot just to get it down a bit and then continue, because it's harder than the wood. So on this particular guitar or neck, it's not a problem. So I'm just going to inspect it here. I'm just lowering my face so I can see it from another angle. It's very nice looking at it from your angle. And I take away the dust so I can see the line here precisely. And I can see we need a bit more work. I can also see here that this end of the previous fret is a bit higher than the other. So I might want to just fix that by going from the middle and then out there. Yeah, that helps. But again, when we start sanding, we can use that process to just make minor adjustments to the curves here, so you get a completely perfect lineup of little valleys. As you can see, I'm constantly alternating between going from the fret wire and then into the middle of the fret here. First one of the sides, from one side to the other, then doing the other one, and then going all the way across the fret, from fret wire to fret wire. To even out the pit. There's another thing that you can be conscious of, and that is that the corners of the fret, right here, right there, and right there, seems to be places where, if you're not conscious of it, you're not going to remove as much wood as in the other places, just because of this movement. So once in a while I put the thin area of the file right there, and then I move like that out from the fret wire to remove a little bit of wood there. And I do the same over here. I do the same here by taking the thin end and then going like that towards the middle, and here again, make sure you're not tilting the file too much upwards. Follow the fret here. So this is the angle actually when I'm holding it on to it. You can see how the file is. Actually, this is more precise. So you can see how far it goes there. And I'm just working those corners right now in towards the middle. In the beginning, when you start, you can see it actually that you have a tendency to not hit those areas there, because when you start, you can see the marks you make. So, and I just continue, inspect my work again. We've got a bit of a way to go here. Again, I could be applying much more force to what I'm doing here, but I lose control if I do that. So I keep it under control. getting there. Actually, you can see that your end here is not so curvy as what I see here. So I might want to just tilt the file just a little bit in that direction, because maybe I haven't done that, and so this area here is more scallop than the edge is actually. Another thing to be aware of is that the edge of the fretboard and the curve you see is not just the edge of the fretboard and the curve of the edge. It's a reflection of, if you've been pretty consistent with going back and forth like this, it's a reflection of what goes on in here in the middle. So if you see something that needs correction on the edge, because that's where you can see how your scallop looks like, then it's a reflection of the entire area here. So if you want to correct something out here, you correct it all the way up, at least to the middle here. So if you have a high area there, if you want to lower that, you lower all of this. So you move your file across all, instead of just trying to make a cosmetic change by altering the shape of the edge here. You remember that it's a reflection of because it's very hard to see what goes on inside in here. It's very easy to see on the edges how the scallop look, and we can use that in the final adjustments that we're going to do with the sandpaper. We can use that to shape the edges perfectly. So if you correct anything on the edges, you assume that little change is a reflection of what you need to do in the middle as well. I'm spending a little more energy over here on this side because I saw that my curve was very nice here. Oh, coming on very nice, but I need some focus out here. Going back, so I'm not just focusing on the edge, but in the middle as well. Reversing the movement that you do, so you go back from left to right and from right to left. The right to left movement takes just a little bit of practice. And you're going to be a little slow at it in the beginning, perhaps. I was. So maybe you will too. Maybe you won't. Just inspecting here, taking away the dust. See that this is higher than this one, and we need a what I'm doing now is I'm actually going back and forth in the middle. So I'm not going from fret to fret anymore. I'm just going in the middle here to create a little more depth in my soft pit. So to create a little, and again I'm reversing the movement so I don't get don't get any inconsistencies or a crooked pit. And back and forth here to even it out, and perhaps a little more in the middle. As I begin to approach the goal, I inspect more often because I have to hit that finish line. If I go farther than the finish line, there's no going back. See now how it looks. It's a little bit higher over here. So I think I'll just stop there for now, because I have a nice line there, or maybe I should continue just a little bit more. So this is 15 minutes of scalloping just one fret. But if you're not in a hurry, if you're trying to have a good time, try to focus on doing it right, making a nice scallop instead of just going for the result. Enjoy the process and become good at it. Then it's a pleasurable piece of work. What I'm going to do lastly is turn the whole thing around, so I have all these profiles here on the other side, and then I can just do little adjustments to them. But we're getting there. I think this is it. I don't know if you can see that we have a thin line, as I was talking about in a previous video. We have a thin line of untouched wood just besides the fret, both ends, and because the file is so narrow at the end, I can just do like this, just take off as much as I want, but then when I start sanding I can remove it completely. So that's it. That was one fret, and now I'm going to move on to the next one. So I hope that was helpful.